Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that taps into one of our absolute most primal, deep-seated fears. I'm talking about taphophobia. That is the extreme, terrifying fear of being buried alive. Now, historically, people were so completely spooked by this that they designed these elaborate safety coffins, complete with bells and breathing tubes. But while we kind of think of that as a quirky relic of the Victorian era, the wild truth is premature declarations of death are absolutely still happening today. So what actually happens when the ultimate curtain call turns out to be a massive false alarm?
To really wrap your head around how visceral this is, picture this. You're at an open casket wake. The mourners are all gathered around, the tears are flowing, and suddenly, the person in the coffin takes a breath. Sounds like a scene straight out of a horror movie, right? Well, this is exactly what happened to a young man named Watson Franklin Mondujano Doroteo in Peru. After getting a fever and chills from just a routine root canal, doctors pronounced him dead. But as his grieving family stood by his casket, they noticed something completely impossible. His ribcage was rising and falling. He was still breathing.
All right, let's jump into section 1, the ultimate oops. Why premature declarations happen.
So you're probably wondering, how in the world does a mix-up this massive actually happen in the real world, especially with modern medicine? Well, looking at the data, these bizarre events usually fall into a few distinct buckets. First, you've got accidental medical misdiagnoses. Maybe someone's in a deep coma or their vitals are just incredibly faint. Then there are simple but obviously catastrophic clerical errors. Sometimes soldiers go missing in action and are just presumed dead. Other times, a body is completely misidentified by grieving, traumatized relatives. And finally, you have the wild cards, people who intentionally stage their own death or pull off a hoax.
Which brings us to section 2, medical mix-ups and miracles. Let's start with those terrifying moments when the medical establishment gets it horribly, horribly wrong. Take the astonishing 1937 case of a 19-year-old Frenchman named Angelo Hays. So Hays is in this severe motorcycle crash, thrown headfirst into a brick wall. His injuries were so awful, his parents weren't even allowed to see him. With no detectable pulse, doctors declared him dead, and he was buried 3 days later. But because a local insurance company got suspicious and launched an investigation, his body was exhumed 2 days after the funeral. And to everyone's absolute shock, his body was still warm. Hays had been in a coma so deep it severely reduced his body's need for oxygen, which literally allowed him to survive underground. He fully recovered, became a total celebrity in France, and get this, he actually went on to invent a specialized security coffin equipped with a food locker, a toilet, and a library. But hey, these medical miracles aren't just ancient history. Fast forward to 2019 in India with the case of Mohammed Furqan. Furqan was unconscious after an accident and on medical support. His family had paid $10,000 to a private hospital to cover his care. But literally, the very moment the family told the hospital their funds had run out, the doctors coincidentally declared him dead. Just like that. His devastated family starts preparing for his burial, only to see his limbs moving during the funeral prep. They rushed him to another hospital, where he was instantly put back on a ventilator. Critically ill, sure, but very much alive. And sometimes the timing of these realizations is just heart-stopping. Take 78-year-old Walter Williams in Mississippi back in 2014. The coroner had literally completed the paperwork. The body bag was zipped. Williams was transported to the funeral home. It wasn't until he was actually lying in the embalming room that his legs started kicking and he began lightly breathing. I mean, he literally woke up right before the embalming process began. Talk about cutting it close. All right, shifting gears to section 3, cases of mistaken identity. This is where the pure terror of a medical blunder unexpectedly morphs into, honestly, dark comedy. Let's head to Brazil in 2012. A car washer named Gilberto Araújo was just out of town for a bit. Meanwhile, another car washer who looked remarkably like him was tragically murdered. Gilberto's own brother went to the morgue and mistakenly identified the body. So when Gilberto hears a rumor that his own funeral is happening, he tries to call someone at the wake, but everyone just dismisses it as a sick prank. Left with literally no other option, Gilberto had to physically walk through the door of his own wake to prove to his flabbergasted family that he was still breathing. You can probably guess exactly how that went down. When Gilberto trashed the funeral, mourners literally screamed in panic. They thought they were seeing a ghost. People fainted, people ran for the door. But amidst all that chaos, one slightly drunk guest yells out this incredible quote. "I told you I saw the body moving in the coffin." It really just proves that sometimes truth is way stranger and way funnier than fiction. Next up, section 4, staged funerals and ultimate revenge. Now, what if it's not a mistake at all?
What if it's completely calculated and driven by a desire for the ultimate revenge? Take the deeply cinematic story of Noella Rucando in 2016. While she was visiting Burundi, her husband arranged for hitmen to take her life. They captured her, but when these assassins realized that her own husband was the guy paying the bill, they actually had a change of heart and let her go. So Noella secretly flies back home to Australia and dramatically steps out of a car at her own funeral to confront the husband who thought he had successfully had her murdered. Boom. He ended up getting a 9-year prison sentence.
Other times, people stage their deaths just to satisfy their own massive egos. Enter eccentric, wealthy American Timothy Dexter. He basically just wanted to know how people would react if he died, so he throws a massive, lavish fake funeral for himself, complete with expensive wine and fine food, and about 3,000 people actually show up. He secretly watched the whole thing, but the charade ended when he revealed himself in an absolute fury. Why? Because he felt his wife didn't look sad enough during the mourning, and he actually caned her for it. Just wild. Moving on to Section 5, Premature Press and Media Blunders. Stepping away from personal vengeance, let's look at the modern equivalent of crashing your own wake, the premature media obituary. In the digital age, death hoaxes spread like wildfire. In 2015, Beyoncé got hit with a massive viral hashtag hoax. Jack Black's band had their account hacked just to announce his death. But honestly, it's not just internet trolls. Back in 1999, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio was literally sitting at home watching TV when an NBC News ticker scrolled across the bottom of his screen announcing his own death. Turns out a technician had simply bumped the wrong button on a pre-written draft. Oops. But occasionally, a premature obituary is printed not out of a screw-up or malice, but out of pure sympathy. Legendary showman P.T. Barnum was on his deathbed and told his friends he was really bummed he wouldn't get to see what the papers would say about him. So the New York Evening Sun obligingly printed his full obituary 2 weeks early. They explicitly noted he was still alive, just so Barnum could enjoy reading about his own legacy before he finally checked out. And here's a massive one for you. Sometimes a premature obituary literally changes the course of human history. Alfred Nobel, the guy who invented military explosives, was mistakenly reported dead. A major newspaper published a scathing obituary calling him a merchant of death. Well, Nobel actually read this, and he was so completely horrified that this would be his legacy, he immediately changed his will. He used his vast fortune to fund an award for those who confer the greatest benefit to humankind. Yep, he created the Nobel Prize solely to rewrite his accidental obituary.
Finally, Section 6, Confronting Our Most Primal Fear. As we wrap up this explainer, let's circle back to that initial fear, taphophobia, and why we are just so utterly fascinated by people who manage to cheat the grave. The 1915 story of a 30-year-old woman named Essie Dunbar perfectly nails this morbid curiosity. Everyone thought she died after a fatal epilepsy attack, so she was quickly buried. But her sister was traveling from out of town and arrived just as the very last shovel of dirt was thrown on the grave. Desperate to see Essie one last time, the sister demanded they dig her back up and open the coffin. When they pried off the lid, Essie just sat up, looked at everyone, and smiled. She went on to live another 47 years.
It's incredible stories like Essie's and Alfred Nobel's that leave us totally captivated. So, I'll leave you with this final thought today. Surviving your own death declaration isn't just a bizarre miracle or a terrifying ordeal. It is perhaps the ultimate second chance to wake up, see exactly what the world thinks of you, and completely rewrite your story. So if you read your obituary tomorrow, what would you change today?